January 26, 1945. Holtzwihr, France. The tank destroyer is on fire behind him. Audie Murphy can feel the heat against his back as flames lick toward the fuel tanks. German soldiers are advancing through the snow-covered field, at least 250 of them, supported by 6 tanks. They're 50 yards away, then 40, then 30. Murphy is alone on top of the burning vehicle, gripping a .50 caliber machine gun. His entire company has fallen back into the woods. He's ordered them to retreat. Now he's the only thing standing between 24 German panzers and his men. The telephone line drapes over his shoulder, still connected to his artillery observer. He's calling in fire missions on his own position. Shells explode around him. The Germans keep coming. The tank destroyer beneath his feet could explode at any moment. He can smell the fuel, the cordite, the smoke mixing with the bitter cold of the Alsatian winter. His hands are so cold he can barely feel the trigger. But he keeps firing. 1 German falls, then another, then 3 more. The machine gun is screaming. Murphy is screaming into the phone, adjusting artillery coordinates. He's 19 years old. He weighs 112 pounds, and he absolutely refuses to move. But how did Audie Murphy get here? And what happened in the next hour that would make him the most decorated soldier in American military history? Audie Leon Murphy was born on June 20th, 1925, in a sharecropper's shack near Kingston, Texas. He was the 7th of 12 children born to dirt-poor cotton farmers. His father abandoned the family when Audie was young. His mother died when he was 16. By that time, Audie had become the primary provider for his siblings, hunting rabbits and squirrels to keep them fed. He stood 5'5" and weighed barely 110 pounds. He had a baby face that made him look even younger than he was. But life had already taught him something essential. When there's no one else, you don't quit. You do what needs to be done. After his mother's death, Audie tried to enlist. It was 1942, and America was at war. The Marines rejected him. Too small. The paratroopers rejected him. Too short. Finally, the Army took him. He lied about his age. He was 17. In training, his marksmanship instructors noticed something unusual. The quiet kid from Texas could shoot. Not just well, extraordinarily well. Those years hunting squirrels to feed his siblings had made him one of the finest natural marksmen they'd ever seen. One instructor noted he could hit a tin can at 300 yards, consistently. But more than marksmanship, Murphy had something else. His platoon mates would later describe it as a calm that descended on him under pressure. Where others panicked, Murphy became quieter, more focused, deadlier. Murphy shipped out to North Africa in early 1943, assigned to Company B, 15th Infantry Regiment, 3rd Infantry Division. He arrived as a replacement private. The veterans barely noticed him. He looked like a kid playing soldier. His first combat experience came during the invasion of Sicily in July 1943. During a firefight, Murphy killed his first enemy soldiers, 2 Italian officers trying to escape on horseback. He was sick afterward, according to his autobiography, To Hell and Back. The reality of taking human life hit him hard, but he didn't freeze. He didn't run. Italy came next. The fighting was brutal. Mountain warfare, entrenched German positions, artillery raining down constantly. Murphy's squad leader was killed, then his platoon sergeant, then his company commander. Each time, Murphy stepped up. He started taking on leadership roles despite his rank. Men began following him because he kept them alive. At Anzio, Murphy single-handedly cleared a German machine gun nest that had his platoon pinned down. He crawled through a drainage ditch, flanked the position, killed the crew, and brought the gun back to his own lines. He earned his first decoration, the Bronze Star. His commanders noticed this baby-faced kid didn't just fight. He fought smart. He understood tactics instinctively. and he had no quit in him whatsoever. By the time his division moved to France for Operation Dragoon in August 1944, Murphy had been promoted to staff sergeant. He'd earned the Distinguished Service Cross for destroying a German tank and killing its crew. He'd been wounded twice, injuries he downplayed to avoid being sent to the rear. At 19 years old, Audie Murphy was already a combat veteran who'd seen more action than most soldiers would experience in an entire war. His unit knew him as someone special. His battalion commander, Colonel Ware, watched Murphy closely. He had this way of seeing the battlefield, Ware later said, like he could read what the enemy was going to do before they did it. But nothing Murphy had experienced, not Sicily, not Anzio, not the mountains of Italy, would prepare anyone for what was coming in the frozen fields of Alsace. By January 1945, the 3rd Infantry Division was pushing into eastern France toward the German border. The fighting had been continuous for months. Murphy was now a 2nd lieutenant and company commander of Company B. At 19, he commanded 128 men. Most of them were veterans, older than him. They followed him without question. The division's objective was to clear the Colmar Pocket, a German-held bulge in the Allied lines near the Rhine River. The small village of Holtzwihr sat in frozen farmland, surrounded by snow-covered fields and patches of woods. German forces held the village in strength. Company B's mission, on January 26th, advance across open ground, take the woods beyond Holtzwihr, and hold against any counterattack. Murphy didn't like it. Open ground, no cover. Germans dug in, but orders were orders. At 1400 hours, 2 p.m., Company B moved out. Murphy positioned himself with the lead elements. He always did. Behind him, 2 M10 tank destroyers provided fire, support. Within minutes, German artillery began falling. The ground erupted in geysers of frozen dirt and snow. Murphy pushed his men forward. They made it to the edge of the woods. For a moment, it seemed like they might consolidate the position. Then the scouts reported enemy movement. A lot of movement. 6 German tanks, panzers and tank destroyers, accompanied by at least 250 infantry, were counterattacking directly toward their position. Murphy grabbed his radio. The math was simple and devastating. He had roughly 40 men in position, no anti-tank weapons beyond what the M10s carried. Against 6 German tanks and a battalion-strength infantry force, Company B was about to be overrun. Murphy made his call. Company B, fall back to the woods. Establish defensive positions in the tree line. His men withdrew in good order, taking positions 100 yards behind Murphy's location. The 2 M10 tank destroyers pulled back with them, except one. The lead M10 had been hit. It wasn't destroyed yet, but it was immobilized, sitting in the open field between Murphy's company and the advancing Germans. Murphy was standing near the disabled M10 when its crew bailed out. Flames were beginning to lick from the engine compartment. The crew ran for the woods. Murphy looked at the burning vehicle. He looked at the Germans advancing through the snow. They were 200 yards away and closing fast. He looked back at his men in the tree line. The Germans would overrun them in minutes. Then Murphy did something that defied every tactical principle, every survival instinct, every rational thought. He climbed onto the burning tank destroyer. One man against an army. The M10 had a .50 caliber heavy machine gun mounted on top. Murphy grabbed it, checked the ammunition feed, and opened fire. The sound of a .50 cal is distinctive, a deep, rhythmic pounding that can be heard over almost anything on a battlefield. German soldiers began dropping 200 yards out. The advance slowed, but it didn't stop. Murphy was completely exposed, standing on top of a burning vehicle, visible against the white snow. German infantry started directing fire at him specifically. Bullets snapped past his head. Rounds clanged off the metal around him. He kept firing, traverse left, 3 Germans down, traverse right. 2 more, change ammunition belt, keep firing. The Germans closed to 150 yards. The tank destroyer beneath Murphy's feet was fully engulfed now. According to the after-action report filed by Murphy's battalion commander, flames were emerging from the engine compartment and spreading toward the fuel tanks. The vehicle was in imminent danger of exploding. Murphy later told a friend, "I could feel the heat through my boots. I knew it could blow. I didn't care." Calling fire on himself. Murphy still had the field telephone draped over his shoulder. The line ran back to his artillery observer, Lieutenant Walter Weisfenning, positioned with the company in the tree line. Murphy got him on the line. "Bring the fire in closer. Danger close." Weisfenning protested. Murphy was calling for artillery strikes within 50 yards of his own position. That was beyond danger close. That was suicidal. Murphy's response, recorded in official reports: "If you don't put steel on them, they're going to be on top of me. Fire the mission." American 105mm howitzer shells began falling on the advancing German infantry. The explosions walked up toward Murphy's position, 60 yards away, 50 yards, 40 yards. Shrapnel whistled overhead. Concussive blasts shook the ground. The Germans were staggered but still coming. Infantry squad leaders were pushing their men forward. 2 panzers maneuvered to get firing angles on Murphy's position. Murphy adjusted fire. "Drop 50, traverse right, fire for effect." He never stopped firing the 50 cal. Between bursts, he called corrections to the artillery. 1 German tank tried to target him directly. Murphy suppressed its supporting infantry, forcing the tank to button up. Blinded, the panzer commander couldn't get an accurate shot. How much longer? The assault lasted 1 hour, 60 minutes of continuous combat. Murphy fired more than 800 rounds from the 50 caliber. He called in 6 separate artillery fire missions on positions within 100 yards of himself. Weisfenning stayed on the phone the entire time, listening to Murphy's calm voice directing fire while the sound of machine gun fire and explosions roared in the background. At one point, Weisfenning asked, "How are you doing?" Murphy's reply, "Busy." The Germans kept trying to flank the position. Murphy would pivot the machine gun, cut them down, then pivot back to suppress the frontal assault. He was fighting a 360-degree battle by himself. German commanders later reported, in post-war interrogations, that they believed they were facing a reinforced platoon position with multiple machine guns. The intensity and accuracy of fire seemed impossible to come from one man. But it was one man, a 19-year-old who weighed 112 pounds, standing on a vehicle that could explode any second, refusing to yield an inch of ground. At approximately 1500 hours, 3 cows p.m., the German assault broke. They'd taken catastrophic casualties. The combination of Murphy's machine gun fire and the artillery he was directing had shattered their attack formation. Bodies lay scattered across the snow-covered field. 2 of the German tanks had been disabled by artillery strikes. The infantry had had enough. The Germans withdrew. Murphy watched them fall back. He kept the 50 cal trained on them until they were out of effective range. Only then did he climb down from the burning tank destroyer. The M10 exploded 15 minutes later. Murphy walked back to his company's position in the tree line. His men stared at him like he was a ghost. Several later reported they'd been certain he was dead. They'd watched him up there, surrounded by fire and bullets, for an hour. No one could survive that. But Murphy was alive. He had a leg wound he hadn't noticed during the fight. When medics checked him, they found metal fragments embedded in his leg and hip. He refused evacuation. His first words to his executive officer, according to multiple witness statements, "Get the men ready, they might come again." Company B held the position. The German counterattack had been stopped cold. When American forces tallied the results of the engagement, They counted at least 50 German soldiers killed in the field in front of Murphy's position. Battalion S2, Intelligence, estimated that total German casualties from the attack, killed, wounded, and captured, exceeded 100 men. Murphy had single-handedly broken a battalion-strength assault. His battalion commander, Colonel Wehr, filed an immediate recommendation for the Medal of Honor. The citation process typically took months. Murphy's took 6 weeks. The official Medal of Honor citation, approved by the Secretary of War, reads in part, Südlieutenant Murphy commanded Company B, which was attacked by 6 tanks and waves of infantry. Südlieutenant Murphy ordered his men to withdraw to prepared positions in a woods, while he remained forward at his command post and continued to give fire directions to the artillery by telephone. Behind him, to his right, one of our tank destroyers received a direct hit and began to burn. Its crew withdrew to the woods. Lieutenant Murphy continued to direct artillery fire, which killed large numbers of the advancing enemy infantry. With the enemy tanks abreast of his position, Lieutenant Murphy climbed on the burning tank destroyer, which was in danger of blowing up at any moment, and employed its .50 caliber machine gun against the enemy. He received a leg wound, but ignored it and continued the single-handed fight until his ammunition was exhausted. He then made his way to his company, refused medical attention, and organized the company in a counterattack which forced the Germans to withdraw. Recognition and awards. Murphy received the Medal of Honor from Major General J.E. Dahlquist on June 2, 1945, in a ceremony at an airfield in France. By that time, Murphy had accumulated an astonishing collection of decorations: Medal of Honor, Distinguished Service, Cross, 2 Silver Stars, Legion of Merit, 3 Purple Hearts, 2 Bronze Stars with V device for Valor, Good Conduct Medal, Combat Infantryman, Badge Marksman Badge with Rifle Bar Expert Badge with Bayonet Bar. He also received decorations from France, Legion of Honor, Croix de Guerre with Palm, and Belgium, Croix de Guerre with 1940 Palm. In total, Audie Murphy would finish the war with 33 awards and decorations, including every medal for valor that the United States could bestow. He remains the most decorated American combat soldier of World War II. The man behind the medals. But the awards bothered Murphy in ways his commanders didn't understand at first. He accepted them on behalf of the men who didn't come home. In To Hell and Back, Murphy wrote about the friends he'd lost. Soldiers killed fighting beside him in Italy, France, Germany. Their names fill pages of his autobiography: Laddie Tipton, Brandon, Kerrigan, Swope. Men who never got to go home. Murphy carried survivor's guilt for the rest of his life. He suffered from what would now be diagnosed as severe PTSD, though in 1945 they called it battle fatigue and told soldiers to tough it out. Murphy had nightmares. He slept with a loaded pistol under his pillow. He fought depression. But in June 1945, he was a hero. America needed heroes as the war wound down. The baby-faced soldier from Texas was about to become famous. After the war, Murphy moved to Hollywood. His boyish good looks and authentic war hero status made him a natural for films. He starred in 44 movies, including the 1955 adaptation of his autobiography, To Hell and Back, in which he played himself. It was the highest-grossing film Universal Studios had produced up to that point. But Murphy's most important post-war contribution had nothing to do with movies. He spoke publicly about his PTSD symptoms, something almost no veterans did in that era. He talked about nightmares, about depression, about the difficulty of adjusting to civilian life. He pushed for better treatment for veterans suffering from psychological trauma. His advocacy helped destigmatize what we now recognize as PTSD and contributed to improve veterans' mental health care. Murphy told a reporter in 1969, "I'm not a hero. The real heroes didn't come home." Audie Murphy died on May 28, 1971, in a plane crash near Catawba, Virginia. He was 45 years old. More than 5,000 people attended his funeral at Arlington National Cemetery. He's buried in one of the most visited grave sites at Arlington, Section 46, grave 36611. His headstone is simple. It lists his rank, his name, his Medal of Honor. What it doesn't capture is the full measure of what he did or who he was. How he's remembered. The Audie Murphy American Cotton Museum in Greenville, Texas, preserves his legacy. The Audie Murphy VA Hospital in San Antonio provides care for veterans, a fitting memorial for a man who advocated for veterans' mental health. But Murphy's real legacy lives in the veterans who've spoken openly about PTSD because he did first. It lives in the understanding that heroism and psychological trauma aren't mutually exclusive, that someone can be both incredibly brave and deeply wounded. The Congressional Medal of Honor Society includes Murphy's story in their education programs, teaching new generations about courage under fire and service to country. On January 26, 1945, a 19-year-old from Texas stood alone on a burning tank destroyer and stopped a German armored assault through sheer courage and skill. For 1 hour, Audie Murphy became an immovable object, one man against 250 enemy soldiers and 6 tanks. But his heroism that day wasn't about being superhuman. It was about making a choice. When every instinct said run, when the rational decision was to fall back, Murphy chose to stay. He stayed because his men needed him to stay, because if he didn't, they would die. That's the essence of the Medal of Honor. Not absence of fear, but action in spite of fear. Not invincibility, but refusal to quit when quitting would be so much easier. Audie Murphy lived 45 years. He fought in 9 major campaigns. He killed at least 240 enemy soldiers. He was wounded 3 times. He earned 33 military decorations. He became a movie star. He suffered from PTSD until the day he died. But on one frozen afternoon in France, when it mattered most, a kid from Texas showed the world what courage actually looks like. His name was Audie Leon Murphy, and we will remember.